Hey folks, Ranger here, and I am back again with another review. Now, after reviewing a whole lot of dinosaurs recently from Mattel's lineup, I think it's time to review some kaijus for a little while, since admittedly I've kind of gotten a little burned out from the Mattel stuff. But anyway, so I thought that for the start of reviewing kaijus again, why don't we go with one of the best figures to come out of Bandai America's, or as older fans would call it, Bandai Creations lineup from their Godzilla line. It is, of course, the Mechagodzilla 1974. So this is the original Mechagodzilla from Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. So in the movie, we see I should say Godzilla, and consider these air quotes here, pop out of Mount Fuji and starts a rampaging through Japan. And then he stumbled across Anguirus, which is a little weird considering the two have already been established as allies. And then we see this Godzilla rip open Anguirus' jaw, and during the battle we see bits of metal under Godzilla's skin, hinting at what is to come. So we see Godzilla invading a factory, and then the real Godzilla shows up to battle this imposter, and we see more bits of the fake Godzilla's flesh fall out, and we soon get the epic reveal that this is a Mechagodzilla. So a robot monster constructed by the Black Hole 3 ape men from outer space. So basically, this is their own invasion weapon against Earth. So Mechagodzilla and Godzilla start battling once more. They get into a beam clash that ultimately wounds Godzilla and even damages Mechagodzilla. So Mechagodzilla is sent to his base for repairs, and for a good portion of the movie, the main professor character in the movie was tasked to rebuild Mechagodzilla forcefully by the aliens because they were holding his daughter hostage. So he helped reluctantly helped the aliens rebuild Mechagodzilla. But, it ended up being a dirty deed because, well, that's how aliens work in Godzilla movies. So later on in the movie, Mechagodzilla was sent to attack a King Caesar who was discovered and was on the verge of awakening. So Mechagodzilla starts approaching towards him, but it was too late as King Caesar already awakened. But then again, Mechagodzilla starts beating the crap out of King Caesar. Excuse me. But fortunately, Godzilla shows up for a rematch against his doppelganger, and what pursues is a pretty entertaining battle, which ultimately ends Godzilla getting beat up by Mechagodzilla once more. He literally starts becoming a blood sprinkler thanks to Mechagodzilla's finger missiles and lasers and whatnot. But fortunately, Godzilla unleashes magnetic powers so he can attach himself into Mechagodzilla, and with him and King Caesar now gaining the upper hand again, Godzilla managed to decapitate Mechagodzilla's head. He literally turns his head, and then from the action of destroying the control room of the Black Hole 3 aliens, Mechagodzilla's body exploded. So yeah, and I'm not gonna go over the history in Terror Mechagodzilla, since it kind of technically that it is the show Mechagodzilla, but there are a few different designs with the 75 suit, MG2, and there's a bit more complex story there. But that was just the history portion of the first film. So so this is kind of an interesting one for me because this is actually not my first figure of the Bandai America or Bandai Creations Mechagodzilla. This is actually my second one that I purchased because my old one has unfortunately gone through some hell and back unfortunately, but a little bit more on that later. So let's go on to with this review. So yeah, so I'm sure that many of us remembered that Bandai America kind of had an interesting rap, to say the least. On the one hand, you had a lot of Godzilla fans, especially here in the U.S., that do adore a lot of the figures released back then, and others were not too fond on some of the design choices on some of the figures with like certain proportions and design elements. But mostly everyone can agree that this Mechagodzilla is one of the best from their line, and I agree. This is a really faithful adaptation of the original Mechagodzilla. And so yeah, so without further ado, I think we should get a closer look on the head. Pan the camera a little bit. So yeah, the head on Mechagodzilla looks really good. Like, this is definitely a... Let me adjust the light here. There we go. So this is definitely a pretty dead-on representation of Mechagodzilla. So you can see all of the screws and bolts on, his side, the head here. And, I might as well point out that the entire body is a silver color, but I will point out some the more interesting color choices made here. But yeah, the whole body is a pretty nice silver that does thankfully get some shine all over it. And I do like how this silver is not exactly bright, but it's not exactly muted either, which I do find is pretty accurate to what he looked like in the movie. And a bit of a comparison, I will say that the SH Monster Arts version that I saw, SH Monster Arts 74 Mechagodzilla, it had an issue of being a little too bright on the silver. So yeah, might as well point that. Oh, that bit of a foul there, but yeah. So yeah. And speaking, since I was mentioning the paint, I should mention one inaccurate paint scheme done here, and that's with the eyes. In the movie, they were actually a yellow color, but on this figure, of course, they're orange. It's not a big deal breaker, honestly. I mean, it's only one, subtle difference that Bandai America did that honestly doesn't really distract the whole figure, because, even looking at it dead on, you can definitely see that it still makes out the Showa Mechagodzilla's likeness, as, you got the antenna here and his nostrils here, which, in certain media, that would have produced flamethrowers. But, so yeah, you can see his two rocket-like tongues in there, which are painted red. Really nicely done. Yeah, and then on the mouth, we can see the teeth. They're not individually sculpted, but that's okay. We can still make out the teeth here. So, really nicely done here. And starting down, we got the scoots, of course, same color as the body, but nicely picked out. I definitely do like the more simple yet iconic appearance that the Showa Mechagodzilla had with its fins. So really nicely done. You can see them. And I like how they're individually, not individually, well, they are individually sculpted, but they're also kind of alike in a sense. A little bit of a paint smudge here, but that's okay. I can fix. Oh, I got it. But yeah, so we can see, nice variation and shapes and in the dorsal fins here. Nicely done. I especially love the bigger plate here. So yeah. I also do like how Mechagodzilla's plate in the movie were a bit more simplified versions of Godzilla's own plates. So yeah, something I want to say. And going back with the main body, so we can see nice bolt details on his side and necks here. Really nicely done here. And this is where we get to really interesting paint done here. So, with Mechagodzilla, you expect, entirely a silver figure because, well, in the movie, he was mostly silver. But, you gotta commend Bandai America for adding a bit more paint details, even with the silver, because we also got this nice darker gray silver here on certain parts of the body, like the vents here and around the shoulder here, and even around the chest beam laser outline here. Really nice design, and it still catches light really well, in my opinion. So nicely done. And of course, we can see nice, picked out bolt details here, like really nicely done. And of course, we can see them more here. Yeah, definitely the detail really stands out with the bolts picked out. And then of course, we got the orange button here. And moving on to the arms. And of course, because it's the 74 Mechagodzilla, we of course got the iconic MG logo here, nicely painted out in red, as on this side. And we can see, the nice, rings here also picked out here. And then we got, even more bolts picked out also. More, more vent rings here also. Then, of course, we get into the iconic finger missile hands. Nice details with bolts here. And, of course, throughout these certain parts of the arm here, we can see more of the metallic gray, as I mentioned. So, very nicely done here. See the hands are nicely picked out. Really nice detail here. Even on top, you can see, 3 bolts here. And the same thing goes for this arm also, nice details, nice metallic gray painted. And then, of course, we got the other hand here. And then around the waist, we got, more bolts picked out, more nicely done, metallic gray picked out. And then we got another button here. And we got interesting, what's the word? I want to say a plate here picked out with a V shape, I want to say. Now, I am trying to remember some of the difference between the 74 and the 75. I do believe this was a little different on 75. I had to recheck again. But yeah, but we can see more bolts picked out also here. Very nicely done. And one thing that I also want to mention when it comes to detail is you might notice on certain parts of the figure on how there are certain folds sprinkled in. Like around here and this portion of the arm, you can see a bit of folds. And once we move to the leg here, you can see a bit of a bend here also. Some have pointed out that this sort of detail makes the figure look like the actual suit, actually. And that is actually a really nice detail that I commend Bandai America, especially around the leg here. Like, this part here definitely reminds me that this is, a guy in the Mechagodzilla suit. So, really nice attention to detail by Bandai America's part. So, yeah. So, we can see here. Seeing more nice metallic gray here again. Nice bolts picked out once again. And of course, we got, his knee. Were these missiles? I don't think so, but it would make sense if these were missiles, considering he already has missile on his fingers and his toes right here. But yeah, but we can see more bolts. And I especially love this design here with the bolts continuing down from this portion into the knee. Nice bolts picked out with metallic gray also. Really nicely done. Then we got to get to his legs. We got, his feet picked out. So, yeah, nicely done. Nice, a bit more smoother detail, but we can see the toes picked out. So, nicely done. Then moving down to the bottom, we can see the League of Magenda, Bandai 09, because this was released in 2009. We can even see that then, and there is a bit of a strange black spot here, but it's at the bottom of the foot, so it doesn't exactly matter to me as much. So, yep. Then moving on to the tail, starting with the underside, you can see the nice individual parts picked out in a square pattern right here. And then moving on to the side here, we can see, some bolts on each side here. Nicely picked out in a nice V formation, starting from the top here to here. And then, of course, we got the iconic tail blade at the end here. Nicely picked out. And then we got a bit of a rocket launcher there. So, yeah, I think overall, Bandai America definitely did a pretty solid job in depicting this version of Mechagodzilla. And I should mention that, like I said, this is technically my second figure of the Bandai America figure, because I do have my first one, and long story short, I was a bit more rougher with some of my Godzilla figures, and with my Mechagodzilla figure, I would constantly pop the head on and off just so I can recreate the iconic scene where, where Godzilla rips off his head. But unfortunately, that ended up being a reality, as the socket where his neck attached to, his body for the articulation, they end up being ripped apart over time. And so, unfortunately, I did glue it back together. I wasn't exactly too satisfied for a little while because, he couldn't do his iconic head rotation movement thingy again. So, for a little while, I was a bit bummed on that. Fortunately, it was around 2019, aka the year Godzilla King of Monster came out, that for some reason, Bandai America started re-releasing some of their figures at Walmart, which included Mothra, Rainbow Mothra, GMK Ghidorah, Godzilla 68, and of course Mechagodzilla here. So I had a second chance with this guy. And as for my old Mechagodzilla figure, well, I customized him, and now he is the Black Mechagodzilla from Godzilla Island. Yep. Yeah, that's what I did. And so you can kind of see, if I get a closer look here, where his head is glued on. And of course, looking back, the overall paint job is obviously not exactly the greatest in my opinion, but it serves serviceable at least for a simple custom. So yeah, so Black Mechagodzilla from Godzilla Island. So I barely use this custom for projects, I should mention. It was just a fun project I wanted to do at the time. So yeah, so that's just, my little story on my experience with this figure. But yeah, so moving on, let's get on to with the articulation. So this is probably one of the main reasons why a lot of people love this figure, and that is the articulation, because head can rotate full 360, so you can recreate the iconic scene where he spins his head round and round to create his force field. The arms can go 360, like so. And then the legs, 360 also. And as an added bonus, around the waist portion, 360. So, yeah, so Mechagodzilla here has really nice articulation that is definitely pretty faithful to what the character was in the film. So, yeah, you expect these sort of articulation on the Showa Mechagodzilla. So, yeah, I think the articulation does pretty well. There's no articulation on the tail, but there really is a need to be with this Mechagodzilla figure. So with this sort of articulation, you can get him in more dynamic poses, because I know some people don't exactly like some of the position the arms in. They're a bit more splayed out. Makes him not exactly as accurate to the film, but, there is some workaround, like so. So, yep, so you can get him in his finger launching position, which looks pretty damn cool if you ask me. So yeah, so overall the articulation is pretty good, not only with, you know, the 360s, but also the fact that you can put him in pretty dynamic positions. So yeah. So with that being said, I think we should move on to the size comparison. So yeah. So first side comparison is of course a Showa Godzilla figure. I don't have a 74/95 figure. I mean, there is going to be the Movie Monster Series Godzilla Store exclusive 73 figure, but that's not released yet. So for now, for a substitute, here we have the also Bandai America / Bandai Creation Godzilla 68. And yeah, this is not the greatest scale because Godzilla is a bit bigger than Mechagodzilla. I mean, even by inches standard, but by body ratio, yeah, Godzilla is a wee bit too big. I mean, this Godzilla figure and even the NECA figures are a bit too big compared to some of my Showa figures. So, yeah, that's a bit of a bummer, but what can you do? Hopefully the new 73 Godzilla Store exclusive figure will be a bit more sizable with this Mechagodzilla. So, yeah, sizing here is not exactly the greatest, but there is a good workaround that I found, and that is the 1954 Bandai America figure. This is the second resculpt, I should mention. And yeah, this is actually definitely much better. You know, Godzilla's is a bit more of in a hunched position, but you know, this is definitely pretty nice scaling here. You know, Mechagodzilla is obviously a bit taller. So, yeah, this looks pretty good, actually. Yeah, I definitely remember Mechagodzilla being a tad bigger than Godzilla here. So, yeah, really nicely done. And, of course, let's bring out, you know, Mechagodzilla's second archenemy here. And that is, of course, King Caesar. So, yep, this is also a Bandai America. Yeah, I think a lot of us can agree that a lot of us U.S. collectors have a lot of the Bandai America figures around. But yeah, so I think King Caesar looks pretty good with Mechagodzilla. Let me position his ears so he can look a bit more like what he was doing in the movie Bandai Mechagodzilla. Yeah, I think it looks good. I think King Caesar though is a bit more on the bigger side also, though not as bad as Godzilla 68. So I think there's a serviceable scaling here. So yeah, I think this looks pretty good. I mean, King Caesar, like I said, it's maybe on the bigger side, but it's not too bad. And technically, since he did fought him, but only in the fake Godzilla disguise, here is, of course, Anguirus. That is, of course, my memorial box figure, which I did review. I believe this was one of my first reviews that I did. So, yeah. My Godzilla and the memorial box showing Anguirus. Anguirus, like 68, is a bit more on the bigger side, a bit too big actually, because, you know, even without the disguised skin, this is a wee too big. I mean, I guess, you know, with Anguirus on a crawling position, it's not too noticeable, but, you know, if I were to recreate the scene where fake Godzilla would have lifted Anguirus, I think Anguirus is a bit more on the bigger side also, but I mean, it's not too bad, but, you know, it's not exactly 100% accurate, but it is what it is, once again. So, yeah, I think that's really about it, actually. So, yeah. So, some final thoughts on the Bandai America Showa Mechagodzilla. This is a really nice figure. Actually, one of my favorite Showa figures in my collection. He has, pretty nice details with the bolts. Really nice variation of paint, especially with the silver and metallic gray. Really nice paint done on some of the smaller bits with like this MG symbol. Articulation is pretty solid, and he does sizes up with your average of 6-inch figures, depending on whether actually 6-inch or not. But yeah, a bit more bit frame. But yeah, so yeah, and I guess it is kind of sad to think that Bandai America did lost their license over time, because they definitely had some pretty solid figures release. And of course, like I said, this Mechagodzilla was definitely one of their best figures that they've released. And I know that Playmates also had the mantle for a little while, but of course recently Playmates even lost their license. So who knows who will make the next batch of affordable Godzilla figures. So yeah, it's a bit of a turmoil on who's owning the license to make affordable, kid-friendly Godzilla figures these days. But regardless, I think for the time, I think this was definitely one of Bandai America's best uh, of releases. And it's great how there was so much care put in this figure, despite this being a, around the time of its release, around 10 to 15 bucks. So this figure, along with plenty of the other Bandai America figures, were really well priced, and a lot of them, of course, had really nice details put into them. So so like I said, this has been my review on this figure. So thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you for some of those support you gave me on Instagram and what have you. So so I think I'll see you guys next time.